Hey everybody, this is Carl back again for another review. We're wrapping up Halloween theme month review with some Ghost Rider stuff. We're going to do 2007 Ghost Rider movie starring Nicolas Cage, as well as the sequel, Spirit of Vengeance. And then I have a Ghost Rider miniseries that I'll be covering uh, right after that. So that'll be the conclusion for this month. Uh, yeah, so that'll be that. Um, but that'll give me some time to, because I got only a few things for November for Thanksgiving. I don't know why I put that in quotation, but Thanksgiving month is only like a few things that I can, at least movie wise, I can review for the channel for you guys. But there's, you know, but at the tail end of November, leading into December, I'll have like a decent amount of Christmas related content for you guys. But anyway, yeah, Ghost Rider, 2007's Ghost Rider. Now, I remember my father taking me to the movie theater to see this because at the time, what was playing that, I remember distinctly because I was really like interested in seeing this. And at the time, the Hannibal movie was starring that guy who it was like a prequel to the Silence of the Lambs stuff, but the it was starring a guy that more recently he had like a cameo role, or at least not a cameo, but like a supporting, little short little role in the Moon Knight series. One of the female leads, Contact. That was at this little jousting thing in like I think episode 3 or 4. I think it was 3, and he like passed away suddenly right after that. So like my father took me to this. I only had like two choices. I think it was around. Was it like when is the movie released? Yeah, it was around February when this movie released. But I only had like two choices at the time when my father took me to see. Like at least you know, I was really looking forward to this, but I also was really looking forward to Hannibal. But before I asked my father to take me to the movies, I had to decide which one I want to go with. I'm a, uh, I'm a Marvel person, at least superhero fan in general, but it's like, it's like, I made a proper choice to go see Ghost Rider instead of Hannibal. But, it was around the time when, all, people like really looking for like those bootleg kind of movies, the stuff that uh, people couldn't afford the movies to see or don't have time or whatever. Uh, so I figured like, oh, I'll get Hannibal whenever we'll find like the bootleg copy of it. But it will be years before like I eventually see that on TV, cable TV. But this is a little background information. Every time I think about like the first Ghost Rider movie, I always think about that moment. But anyway, I also am a huge fan of Nick Cage, and now uh, as a friend of mine who like really not like a huge fan of like Nick Cage's work, although by and large people just love Nick Cage, but when this movie came out, despite the money it raked in at the box office, not many people look too fondly of the first Ghost Rider movie. But just like with Amazing Spider-Man 2 and and lots of other stuff that came out around this time, I think we had a better understanding on certain films that no, like arguably, yeah, it didn't do as well, but I think we grew over time to appreciate some of these films. Now, I still don't like the Electro movie that came out in the early 2000s, but you know, this is pre MCU. This is literally like a year before the first Iron Man movie was released. So you can tell what the stakes were with that film. But uh, but like superhero movies at the time wasn't taken too seriously, and you know, but like I said, it was like an odd time. So like the early 2000s was not. I mean, aside from like the first two Spider-Man films, because they superhero films usually get like three movies at best if you're lucky. Uh, but it was like the first two Spider-Man films were like the A+ go getters that did phenomenally well. Then like the first at that time the first two X-Men films were phenomenal. Uh, but you also dealing at the same time. Then like of course the first two Blade films, but at that time this is not too long after the first Matrix film. You got that whole dark edginess, and everybody's wearing like in this film you got like some bad guys literally wearing trench coats. And it's all dark and like moody vibes. This is like a whole aesthetic at that time. That's what's depicted as cool. Uh, but yeah, so it was an odd time. So bear that in mind. But I argue, and I tell a lot of people this, I think because Nicolas Cage loved really was shooting for playing at this role. He loves the character of Ghost Rider. He's like a little like I don't know if he was like a avid motorcycle kind of guy, like a gearhead kind of like kind of Reeves is, but he like went all in. He goes all in with his films, and like God bless him for that. But just like with well, maybe not just like with Ryan Reynolds, but it's just like when an actor has so much reverence for a character that they want to go all in to make sure this like make sure this character's done right. I give him props for that. But unlike Ryan Reynolds, he because at least most people would think of Ghost Rider, they think of Nicolas Cage at the most part. But it's just like he didn't like want to make sure it is his own. But if I bet you, if Kevin Feige would have asked, I still want him to ask Nick Cage, hey, would you be willing to come up as like maybe like playing like supporting role or whatever? Because I think the guy's name is Daniel Lua or something. Like let me look this up because I don't want to get this wrong. Uh, uh, what's the actor's name? Uh, Gabriel Luna. I think it was like Daniel Luna, something like that. Gabriel Luna, who plays, uh, like at least from what the recent, stuff with Ghost Rider in the MCU, canon wise, was in Agent of Shield in season 3. You get introduced to Robert Reyes Ghost Rider because around that time, that's when like the new Ghost Rider, the Latino guy from uh, East LA in the comics was the new uh, uh, got the mantle Ghost Rider, and he's phenomenal. I love the character, comics wise and in live action. I really hope they, while Gabriel Luna is still pretty young, they bring his ass back to play. Kevin Feige need to get him because getting what getting's good. You don't want this dude to age out. He can still play Robert Reyes Ghost Rider for a good 10 years for the MCU. Get that guy back. But I will appreciate because if you watch Agents of Shield, I know it's like it gets pretty rough and it kind of relatively tanked. Uh, but yeah, season 1 and season 3 is probably like the best seasons in my opinion. But uh, when they introduced like Ghost Rider, and he was going over his like how he got his Ghost Rider powers. You see like a flashback of uh, a guy on a motorcycle, which obviously hints at Johnny Blaze, because in the comics, you know, Robbie only met with Johnny Blaze. He never met with Daniel Ketch, who was the second Ghost Rider. Well, technically, his like I'll get to the movie in a minute, because the original Ghost Rider shows up in this film, but you got Carter Slade as the Old West Ghost Rider, which canon wise he was typically well in the past few years they did like this, in the Marvel comics they have like Avengers BCE, where they got the prehistoric Avengers, and one of the members is a Ghost Rider riding a woolly mammoth that's on fire, which is freaking dope. uh that would be technically the first Ghost Rider, but prior to that, the first Ghost Rider of a lot of people's knowledge will be Carter Slade of the Old West, who was the original Ghost Rider. And then you got Johnny Blaze, who was technically the second Ghost Rider, but the one that everybody knows to this day as the definitive Ghost Rider. Then you got Daniel Ketch, who is the third man, who took on the third mantle. And there was like a female Ghost Rider, but she only had like a brief stint. I forgot her name, but there's been like that. But the most but Robbie Reyes is like the current one and the most popular one, arguably, like, you know it's like neck and neck with like Johnny Blaze and Daniel Ketch, as far as like the most memorable. They really like cemented, because I think like all throughout the '90s, Daniel Ketch like was like a big deal. Who kind of cemented himself because of a lot of comic book readers in the '90s, but like he still had like the shadow of Johnny Blaze, because he tends to show up a lot throughout the '90s as well. Uh, Later, but eking into the 2000s. But yeah, it was just primarily those three. So yeah, I really want, like, you don't see like in Agents of Seal, you don't see who is the Johnny Blaze there, but in my mind's canon, that is Nick Cage, and I want Nick Cage. I don't care if it's just supporting; it doesn't have to be like a full-fledged movie, but it's like every once in a while he pops up here and there, because I think like Nick Cage can still do it. He doesn't have to be like ripped to shreds like uh, 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 Chris Pratt, for his role as like Star Lord or anything like that. But he can maybe like 5-10 pounds at the most. Doesn't need to be cut up, like shredded or anything like that. But he can still like mentor the Robbie Reyes guy. It'll be so dope, and I would want these guys in the MCU. Just cage it up and just give us the cage. Uh, but anyway, to the movie. I'm sorry. I'm going off to like a 10-minute tangent with that, because like I love supernaturals, superhero stuff. Uh, I like Santana and Doctor Strange and Constantine, and I like all that stuff. So like I have an appreciation for Ghost Rider than that. Not most people do, but that's mostly because not a lot of writers either do it justice, or the comic book industry uh doesn't make it last long. Good, because they usually give it like at best you get like a short little issue run, but anything longer they end up getting canceled. Or there's a current Ghost Rider things going on right now, so hopefully that lasts a while there's like some meat to the bone, and people have some. And I encourage you to go to your local comic book shop and buy some Ghost Rider, and like support the character so they can keep this stuff going. Because current Ghost Rider is doing pretty well, as long as you maintain like the solid writing and don't get burned out. No pun intended. Anyway, here's the movie. Uh, of course, you get narration by Sam Elliott, who uh, uh, plays as the caretaker here / Carter Slade. You got, of course, Nick Cage as Johnny Blaze. You got Eva Mendes as Roxanne Simpson, who in the comics has always been like Johnny Blaze's love interest. Uh, Wes Bentley as Blackheart. We'll get to that pretty soon. Uh, uh, Peter Fonda as Mephisto. The only on-screen Mephisto we ever got, and I know a lot of people like to bring up, in like, especially since WandaVision and a lot during the uh, Disney Plus TV shows. I was like, oh, could that be like Mephisto in disguise and woo woo? And it's like Mephisto's gonna show up. It's gonna be like, something unexpected, like maybe Ant-Man or something. You don't know. Like, can you imagine if we finally get Mephisto? He shows up in like a post-credit scene of Ant-Man of all places. Can you imagine how wild that would be? Would not see that one coming. With something to that vein, because it cannot be something like in Loki's series or something supernatural where it's like, oh yeah, I called it kind of thing. No, you can't. Kevin Feige will be, if he plays it smart, which I know he would, bring up Mephisto, who some in most stuff, especially current right now in the comics, they like to play like Mephisto being like the quote unquote definitive devil of Marvel comics. Although, depending on the writer, Mephisto is one of many devils in the Marvel universe, and the definitive devil or Satan is on like a different hierarchy than Mephisto, but with like standards and practices and whatever, you don't want to play like like about like God and Lucifer in like certain comic books, because got like the Christian community be up in arms about that kind of stuff. So right now they just like, okay, we'll just have like a fake devil. We'll just call him Mephisto, which in my opinion, I think these are two separate entities. I don't want to quantify Mephisto as the devil. He's just one of many kind of strong demons there. But to each his own. I'm not really going to be too up in arms about that, but that's just how my opinion on the subject. Just like with DC, I think they're more definitive with their, because Marvel Comics, you got like a one above all, which it's their God, but they don't want to use the actual God, so they call it one above all, and their devil is one below all, and that's how they would label God and the devil in Marvel Comics. Just FYI, just like in DC, Lucifer Morningstar, just like in the Netflix TV show Lucifer, and that's their definitive devil in DC Comics. But then you got the Presence, which is how they label the name God in their universe, and he's usually just like this big giant hand. And I know you want to play fast and loose with it now, especially after Doomsday Clock with, oh, that's just the hand of Dr. Manhattan, blah blah blah. But no, like that's, you got like the Presence, and it's different from Dr. Manhattan, whatever. But I just want to put that out there. Anyway, the movie begins with narration from the caretaker going on about the Old West ghostwriter who became who used to be a lawman, became a ghostwriter, and was, every ghostwriter has always been like the devil's bounty hunter. And there was this town called San Venganza who had like, this big giant contract with all the names of at least 1,000 people there in this small town who uh, who made the deal with a devil, and you later find out because in the movie you later find out that this was a decent town at first until Mephisto came walking in and started making deals with everybody. Then people started like just tearing each other apart, and so this contract was he who ordered this ghostwriter to go get this contract for him, and this contract would give him the power to bring hell on earth, but uh, that ghostwriter knew like okay, he can't get his hands on it, so he decided to uh, run away in hiding to avoid Mephisto getting his hands on this. Even though, here's the question here. There's going to be a few questions here. Why would these extra 1,000 souls matter in the grand scheme of things when Mephisto had his, and this is where it comes to play, like he's probably not the only devil in this Marvel's hell, but this might give him like a boost so he can like lead a charge and bring a hell on earth. But if that's not the case, why would this matter in the grand scheme of things where he probably had a lot of years, millennia worth to acquire all these souls from other places that can just as easily, is there something special about these particular souls? Maybe uh, he managed to corrupt what's been known as being like a very, like, I guess make this comparison. If San Venganza was something like, I don't know, like the Vatican, just to make a like one-to-one comparison, like a flip side, not flip side, but like a one-to-one comparison, where it's like, can you imagine like uh, the devil going to the Vatican and just corrupting everybody who the Vatican is like, the pinnacle of like, not to say a pinnacle of righteousness, like they ain't more righteous than anybody else, but it's, you can put it to, like a city where it's like, you don't think it was, that easily corruptible, but managed to corrupt is something that, you know, that's supposed to be relatively pure. He managed to corrupt it, so make it just, more riper or that more sweeter. So there's more potent of souls, I guess, and that's why he needs it to like, give him kind of like a boost in power or something like that. It's not explained that way, but that's how my mind put it. But it should have been like explained why these particular souls is more special than any other soul he probably collected previously. But then after the credits roll and you see this Mario Kart racing level, excuse me, you're in the 80s now, and you see uh, young Johnny Blaze with his father in this, part of this traveling circus, I guess, and they're motorcycle stuntmen, and you see like a young Roxanne who had like a thing for Johnny. They had like a little young budding romance kind of thing, but I remember there being deleted scenes, mostly because of before I got that DVD back in the day, I saw it again on FX cable network, and they had like a little bonus extra scenes at that time, and you get because you see in the theatrical version, you see like the father Barton Blaze chastise his son for like showing off for his girlfriend, and it's like you think she'll stay with you when you're in a wheelchair, blah blah blah. But there was like another extra scene where it's like, hey, go see your girl, kind of thing. It's like, but yeah, it's just like, because just like with the Daredevil movie with Ben Affleck, they should just automatically include these deleted scenes because they do a whole lot. They benefit this movies like these a whole lot more with context than the theatrical most of the time. Because like if you watch the Ben Affleck's Daredevil movie, highly recommend watching the director's cut because it makes the movie a whole lot better. But anyway, it's kind of like the Snyder cut if you understand that comparison. But anyway, uh, uh, he goes to see uh, Roxanne, this little tree on a hill thing, and decide to run away together. But because Roxanne's dad, you never meet him, but according to her, like he doesn't think too highly of Johnny Blaze, and think kind of like fathers look at the boys that their daughters are dating, and they're not like good enough, or they kind of like guys with motorcycles. They're typically viewed as bad boys and not good enough. They don't have anywhere like a future or anything like that. So she decides he's deciding to like send her away to live with her mom, but then they decide, okay, we're gonna just run away together because you know he feels like his father doesn't need him. He do it just fine without him, and he just want to be with Roxanne. And decides to make plans to meet up the next day after the show and to just go, which is a kind of stupid idea, but that's the whole point. They're teenagers. Of course, they're going to just have stupid ideas, but there's no plan uh, 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 at all. Like, how you leaving, even though I don't know how much, I doubt it'll be they making much anyway doing these motorcycle stunt things. Later on, he becomes like a famous motorcycle stunt guy, but there's no guarantee that he was going to do that because as you see from like Loki series and all these multiversal stuff, certain decisions can land you in certain different spots in your life than other iterations of you that might make different choices. If there's like a multiverse of Ghost Rider, and you made the choice to just go with Roxanne as he previously went, he probably wouldn't have made the deal, but he also probably would not become a famous stunt man. He probably would be working dead end jobs or doing like stupid kids shows or whatever, trying to make ends meet, and then might getting her pregnant early, and then all this other stuff down the line that he might be relatively happy, but in her life might not bloom into like a reporter making a good money like she is in the movie. But I'm going off on a tangent here. So he goes home, sees like his father like he finds like a piece of paper in the trash, and it's like a notice, or not notice, but like a letter from the doctor about his father having cancer and it's spreading, and it's just like in the comic books where uh it plays out just like in the comics. It's like Johnny Blaze, how he becomes the Ghost Rider. He makes a deal with Mephisto in order to save his father's life. This is how it plays out, and I kind of like this in the movie, where it's like because it's usually probably because of maybe Dante's Inferno. I probably would have guessed that the lowest depths of hell, like the ninth circle where the devil would be, is uh, uh, is like a frozen uh, part, like of hell compared to the other levels, and uh, and they play this in like the Lucifer and Supernatural TV series, where uh, the actor Mark Pellegrino, I think is how you pronounce his last name, points out like most people think I burn hot, but I burn cold, and as he's blowing air on the glass window and it's freezing instantly, And Peter Fonda, who plays Mephisto here, uh, as he's walking in Johnny's presence, the air around him just like is just turning frigid, and you can see the air, his air blowing out through his mouth. I thought it was a nice touch, and he's offers uh, Johnny the deal to save his father's life, and you see this like a moment where it's like a thunderstorm just cracking down, uh, and like when the moment when like Johnny turns away, you see like the silhouette of Mephisto's real self, on the tent, and it's very like demonic and it's hunched over, and I'm pretty sure it was the director who mentions this in like a deleted scene or whatever, a commentary of it, where uh, he's wielding a cane because after his fall from heaven, he would have been like injured to the point where it's like he had to rely on a cane. He's hunched over, and his demonic self is uh, depicted of that. I would have appreciated that because we had many years of what we know Mephisto to look like, and it would have been cool to have it more, the silhouette more reminiscent of his comic book depiction. That'll be dope. Maybe in the MCU when they bring in Mephisto, they'll have more of a uh, relatively similar look to that. Uh, and of course, Johnny signs a contract in a more BS kind of way, but it's kind of typical for maybe like a demon to pull this stunt on him, where he cuts himself on the contract, which it looks like it's, I guess, smooth, but I guess maybe it's kind of like shark scales that you end up cutting yourself because it's so rigid, and the blood drops onto the contract, and that's it. That's qualifies as a signature. So Johnny wakes up the next morning. His father confesses that he was like really sick, but he's feeling better now. Uh, so it's like no point in worrying about it no more. But then during uh, the father's next stunt, he crashes and dies. And as Johnny rides off, he bumps into Mephisto, saying like, "You killed him. You cheated me." And it's like, no fucking duh. And it's like, that's would be typical. It's just like in like my other review, my Brendan Fraser movie Bedazzled. Check out that spoiler review up on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. As I go over that, how like Elizabeth Hurley's version of the devil, and how like he's making all these wishes, and she thinks of ways to screw him over, so that way he has to make another wish because he gets 7 wishes, and once those 7 wishes are up, she gets his soul. And it's like, of course, the devil will fucking screw you over. It's like, and you can see in like, as I'll go over in Spirit Avengers, as Nicolas Cage narrates, like, doesn't this kid watch movies? Doesn't he know that doesn't always go well? It's like, I'm glad he mentions that there, but that's how me and probably a lot of people in the audience would have thought immediately. It's like, dude, don't you watch fucking movies? Never make a deal with a demon or a devil, because they gonna screw you over because they want their end of the deal. You, but or just like in my other review, in Devil's Advocate, check that out too. Al Pacino's version of the devil, he mentions in a line in like the first act. It's like, that's our secret: kill you with kindness. And it's like they just give you the rope to hang yourself, essentially. Uh, uh, so Mephisto just points out to Johnny, it's like, I held up my end of the deal. I cured him of his cancer. It's not my fault. He died in a different way. And it's kind of like a real F you, because like, I mean, it's like it's hard to argue that point. As fucked up as it is, he it's kind of like I kind of my just a little inside tip in like my personal life. As you know, when I was younger, my father, has like a softball team he goes hangs out with, every summer. He plays with his buddies, and like not in the past like several years, but growing up, it was always this thing, go like tournaments and stuff like that. And one of his friends, I remember that because you know not all the time, but most of the time, we end up going on these road trips to his tournaments. Uh, and one of such trips, I made a bet with one of his friends that uh, uh, I forgot how I went, but it's like like I bet him like you know, uh, uh, with my father playing. I forgot how I worded, but it's like my father, like I made him bet for like $20 that uh uh that uh their team would win the game. Uh, you know, uh, but I forgot how I worded, but they no, was it the other way around? I forget which way, but technically I lost the bet, and he comes to me about his $20. I told him that, well, my father didn't play, and the like I did mention, like it had to include my father. He wasn't on the roster to play in this particular game against this other team. So technically, at best, like the whole bet is null and void. And it was, and my father kind of backed me up. It was like, yeah, technically, he's right. I didn't play, so it's like he doesn't really owe you anything. You don't owe, neither one of you owe each other nothing. So it's kind of like the whole kind of null and void because my father needed to be involved in the game, and he wasn't involved in this particular game. It was the next game he was involved in, at least for how the roster went. And this is kind of how Mephisto kind of played him. It was like you want him to cure his cancer. You should have just said like he can't die, or like or something like that. You had to like word it in a way so that way you could probably get away with it. But hindsight 2020, whatever. So he tells him like you know uh well, your soul belongs to me. So one of these days, I will like call on you for something. So forget about friends, forget about family, uh, forget about love. Uh, you're mine now, Johnny Blaze. And so instead of, because he takes off, leaving Roxanne because he doesn't want to get her involved in this mess and endanger her life. Uh, so fast forward, now he's a famous motorcycle stuntman, evolving in more, dangerous stunts after the next, but always surviving to the shock of his pit crew. And it, uh, he mentions he's just like, oh, it's just luck. And one of his friends, Mark, played by Mac, played by Donnell Logue, who you might know as oh, if you watch the first Blade movie, he's Deacon Frost's right hand man. Uh, or if you watch the TV show Gotham, he plays Harvey Bullock. And so he gets involved in a lot of superhero related stuff. Uh, but he, of course, he and none of his other pit crew doesn't understand how he just, because Mac just keeps telling him like chill on these wild stunts because like you know you're jumping like all these cars, and it's like, you gotta have a limit because like, you know, no human being can like make jumps like this without going to crashing. But Johnny suspects, like, in his mind, like he knows that it's Mephisto keeping him alive, no matter what he's doing, because he's kind of like on some kind of suicide run, kind of thing. He's punished himself because he feels like he was responsible for his father's death. Uh, but then we get the introduction of the side or second antagonist, Blackheart. Now, in the comics, Blackheart, just like in the movies, is the son of Mephisto. And unlike Mephisto, who understands there's like a rules to like, what Hell and he do, Blackheart doesn't feel like he is bound to these kind of rules and always wants to usurp his father and do things his own way, damn all the rules between heaven and hell and all this other stuff. Uh, and he's played by Wes Bentley, and I agree to a lot of people that uh, uh, this is not the ideal Blackheart. If you ever play, like, because I think Blackheart was in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, if you play that game or you read any of Marvel comics, you know what Blackheart like. He's like this inky black porcupine-ish kind of entity with red eyes. And I guess they tried to allude to that in this, where he's shows his kind of like demonic form, and he's got like black eyes and like, bluish skin, and like he's like weird spiny tentacle things coming out of him. But it's like, it's not like they were working on a limited budget. It's more like, at that time, comic books wasn't taken very seriously, so they didn't really put in much effort to make it, because it's, like either they gotta be grounded uh, or they're not gonna be taken, seriously at all. Whatever, I don't know. It's a weird point in time for superhero movies. So Blackheart summons, he goes to this bar where all these Hell's Angels bikers reside. He kills everybody inside just by he by touch. He turns them into corpses. I'm not sure if he's forcing decay or just sucking the life out of them or just freezing them or something like that. He just turns them to like, corpses, and sucking sucking the life from them. And he summons, we later find out, these other fallen angels that got absorbed by the elements on their way. They didn't go directly to hell during the fall from grace. These particular few, which I'm not sure why there are more of these kind of guys, but these particular three, got merged with the elements on the way down, so they wasn't technically in the demonic, getting to their demonic phase. So I guess you call them like half breeds or whatever, but you got Wallow, this water elemental. You got Abigor, this air elemental, and you got Gristle, who is earth elemental. And he needed help is like a strong word. He needed like some backup in order to like Blackheart, in order to get the contract of Son of Venganza. Maybe he's just now finding out about it, but don't know why he never tried to get it much earlier. But I guess he figures he's strong enough now to come to Earth and get a hold of this contract to bring hell on Earth so he can rule and also overthrow his father. But uh, Mephisto not appreciating uh, what his son is doing, he then decides to find his rider and send him out and put a bounty on his own son. So while uh, uh, Johnny finally reconnects with Roxanne, gets a date with her, for some reason he's showing up late. Don't know why he is not there early for her, and causing her to wait. That is freaking weird. There's no guy in history, unless he was just like a piece of shit, or he's just one of those kind of egotistical guys that thinks like, oh, we'll make the girl wait. I can be uh, uh, kind of like showing up late to a party because it's like more fancy or whatever. But I like to make sure either I'm on time on the dot, or at the very least show up at least an hour early. It's, just all depends. But Johnny gets called on by Mephisto, saying like, you're on a contract. If you destroy Blackheart for me, I will return your soul, and we'll call our the debt paid in full. So Johnny rides, and when like he rides and then turns into Ghost Rider, it is freaking awesome because there are certain comic book characters that just got this cool freaking appearance, and the way they are drawn is just like right on point with like the coolest image ever. Ghost Rider is arguably probably like the coolest image ever designed in comic book history. He's just like a guy on a flaming motorcycle with a skull for a head that's on fucking fire, and it is dope. It is like the dopest drawing. It's like, I think it's like even higher than even like maybe Spawn, in argument's sake. I think it's like, Ghost Rider, Spawn, Venom, Superman, Batman, Wolverine, probably like, kind of like very on point, coolest designs. And it's like, he's just like spot on, like, awesome designs. Whether which artist does it better is up to, the viewer. Tom McFarlane is probably like the argue. Tom McFarlane, maybe Jim Lee is probably, in my opinion, probably like the top tier as far as like artists when it comes to comic book drawings. But man, Ghost Rider, phenomenally drawn. And, like every Ghost Rider that's been uh, depicted has always been like a cool design. So he tries to take on uh, uh, Blackheart and his little faux rock band cover boy band partners. But then he's briefly stopped by Gristle, ramming like a truck into Ghost Rider. Don't know why he didn't notice that peeling off towards him in the first place, but whatever. On well, he was stopped by Wallow hiding in a puddle to keep him there while Gristle goes and attacks. But that didn't last long. He kills Gristle while his boys just disappear, because knowing like, okay, this is a serious threat, and is just leaving his boy there to just die. So Ghost Rider takes off, saves before famous Rebel Wilson trying to be Goth from being mugged, and you get to see the Penister, and it's like the Penister is probably one of the most dangerous kind of weapons in Marvel Comics, or at least powers in Marvel Comics, but more specifically the best arsenal in the Ghost Rider's repertoire that just leaves a victim catatonic, because he burns away the soul, because any evil you have wrought on others is turned against you tenfold, and only way as ineffective is somebody who's not feeling guilty about anything that they done, or just revels in it. Like this one moment, Ghost Rider tried to use it against Thanos, and he just revels in it because he's that level of twisted. And he tried to use it against Venom, but I guess the Clintar doesn't necessarily have a traditional soul. I'm not sure what's happening with that. Maybe just like he tried to use the Penance against Moon Knight one time, I remember, and because Moon Knight has DID, it doesn't necessarily work, I guess. So I guess that's why it doesn't work on Venom, because there's two minds there, and I don't know. I'm not sure why specifically, but I just remember it just doesn't work on those particular guys because of those particular reasons. But anyway, he travels to his graveyard and changes back once daylight hits, and he meets up with the caretaker, who explains to him about uh, you know about being a Ghost Rider and what it means. So he goes back home, and runs into Roxanne, who, for some stupid reason, apologizes to Johnny for something that she's not responsible. He didn't show up. He left her high and dry. He's the one to be apologizing. But kudos to him, though, for just coming clean, because most movies, especially around that time, would have just dragged out the whole secret identity thing. But it's like, no, like, I'm going to tell her. But, of course, she doesn't believe him because he can't change during the daytime. It's very, werewolf kind of rules. But you can clearly make a fireball in your hand. You can just show her that, and she will believe you. But then later on, because the police is bringing him for questioning with all these deaths that they suspect he was involved in somehow, because on that night, on riding to chasing the Ghost Rider the first time, he caused all this destruction because his fire on the tires is igniting, and the heat is melting everything along his path, and it's like the intensity of the burns is hellfire, mind you. So it's just like the speed he was going like in crazy amount of speed, because Ghost Rider's, the speed of his motorcycle can reach levels to the insane degrees. In one comic book issue, Ghost Rider is reaching speeds that can keep up with pace with Mjolnir going, being thrown by Thor, going at crazy amount of speeds on its own. So it's like, who knows what's like top speed, but you can get a sense of how fast Ghost Rider can go if he's really booking it on his motorcycle, or just any Ghost Rider on whatever's thing they're riding. So in a deleted scene, one of Johnny's license plate off his motorcycle fell off. It's found at the scene, so they feel like the deaths involving that Blackheart did, they try to link it to him, but don't know why. This is where Charlie Cox Ghost Rider, Daredevil probably would come in and just like in Spider-Man No Way Home, clear him all these charges kind of situation, but we didn't have that here. But that's something that Johnny should have done, where it's like while he's being interrogated, he's interrogating without, because as soon as because he said oh, he watched a lot of cop shows, so I know the routine about good cop, bad cop. Well, if you've seen a lot of cop shows, you know full well to ask for your goddamn lawyer, because they're holding him without due process. They didn't even, from what we've seen in a film, they maybe did it off screen, but they brought him in without reading his rights. for all intents and purposes, they brought him for questioning at best. If you watch my Horrible Bosses review, one of my first reviews that I did for the channel, this happened there in one of an interrogation scene. It's like, yeah, you have no probable cause. You're technically brought here for questioning, so that means that you can only hold Johnny here if he's under arrest, which technically he is not. You only suspect him, but that's not grounds for actually holding him, which only is required if he's literally under arrest. And he's not under arrest because you don't got enough evidence. All you got is a license plate, which could have fell off for a myriad of reasons. Uh, uh, but they took him into a holding cell filled with a bunch of other people, and it's nighttime, so the Ghost Rider is coming out. He takes one of these guys' jackets, so that way he has these traditional Ghost Rider garb, and he takes off looking for Blackheart and his cronies. He takes on Abigor while the city and Roxanne watching, because pretty much his secret out at this point. And he destroys Abigor. He takes off looking for the caretaker. Then Roxanne goes to Johnny's apartment trying to look for him, which I don't know why the police didn't have this same mindset. But she bumps into Mac. Mac is killed by Blackheart, who was also looking for Johnny because he watches from the sidelines that, you know, he has this kind of a thing for Roxanne, so he used her as bait for Johnny to find his contract and bring it to Savaganza, or he'll kill Roxanne. He meets up with the caretaker, who admits that he was Carter Slade, and he gives him the contracts, stating that unlike him, who sold his soul to Mephisto because he, in the past, got greedy, probably took money where he wasn't supposed to, and got caught and was put in a prison cell waiting to be hanged. Mephisto made a deal with him in order to get him to be released and became his first Ghost Rider. So, unlike Johnny, unlike him, Johnny sold his soul for love, which should give him like an edge against somebody like Blackheart and Mephisto. So he gives Johnny the contract in order to go save Roxanne. But then, in an awesome shot, he turns into like the old West style original Ghost Rider, and you get like a skeleton horse riding with the second Ghost Rider on his motorcycle. And it's an awesome shot. And it's like when a lot of people like me first saw this movie, you expect two Ghost Riders taking on Blackheart, and it'd be like an awesome thing. But no, once they get to Savagaza, Carter gives Johnny a shotgun, gives him a word of advice about stick to the shadows, which you later on see that, means he still has his Ghost Rider abilities as long as he's in like any darkness. And he mentions how like he only can change that one time, which I don't know why he could just keep that form until daylight and give some support to some added backup for Johnny. But he keeping himself alive this whole time using that power. But once he changed that, as soon as he because I guess the mantle got passed on to Johnny at this point, because the whole Zathros thing is a little murky like that, who is like the reason why Johnny has the Ghost Rider powers. But Carter can only change that one time. As soon as he reverts back, he passes on. But uh, he wishes Johnny luck, and he rides off, and he turns to he fades away. Uh, so Johnny goes. He gets stopped by Wallow. He burns him, and he boils the water that he tried to drown Johnny in water, but as soon as he flames on, he boils the water, essentially evaporating Wallow, so he's gone. They're just pretty much like cannon fodder at this point. They mean nothing. Uh, uh, Kind of like just different. If this was a video game, they're just like different bosses to increase Johnny's power along the way to take on the final boss. So he brings Blackheart the contract and tries to take him on, but because it's starting to become daylight, which Blackheart probably planned here, uh, Johnny's depowered. He takes on all the souls and becomes Legion, and because he's now super powered, he starts kicking Johnny's ass. But Johnny tries to use the shotgun to blast at him, but he just reforms. But then, thanks to Roxanne, who takes the shotgun and blasts off his head, but it's out of ammo. But he starts to reform himself. Then Johnny immediately clues in, because a lot of people, their main complaint with Johnny Blaze and a lot of Ghost Riders prior to Robbie Reyes in the comics, they kind of play like gullible idiots, or who as I go over the Road to Damnation comic later on, he always been played like a fool, like a pawn. But I like it here where he's like, he comes up like, oh, stick to the shadows, I still got my powers. But also, his penster didn't work before because being like a, born from hell, he never had like an original soul. So the penster wouldn't work on him. But since he absorbed these thousands of souls into himself, their guilt is now his guilt. So now I can burn you by burning them. So he used his penance there, and all their sins is turned back onto him, making him catatonic. So then Mephisto shows up saying like, oh, you fulfilled your end of the deal. I will fulfill the end of mine. I will take, just take my hand. I'll take back my power from you. But Johnny says like, no, I'm going to, so as long as I don't give it back to you, this power is mine. So I'm going to use it to defeat you and any other evil. Which infuriates Mephisto, because now he can't make a new Ghost Rider, because he, this is kind of like a unique thing. So just like in the comics, he owns the Ghost Rider power. But it's slightly different because, like, other Ghost Riders get their powers in, other slightly different ways. But the movie ends with, Mephisto seeking vengeance against him and going back to hell. Then him and Roxanne make up, but you can't have like a stable life with her because of the craziness that is his life now. So he rides off, and the movie ends. Now, like I said, I have a new appreciation for this film, but I still technically agree it wasn't that good. But it's definitely better than well. As I go over Spirit of Vengeance, there's still good stuff in it as well as still good stuff in this. But by and large, they weren't like the best in terms of a Ghost Rider, what we expect from a Ghost Rider movie, that we could get now with Kevin Feige at the helm and bringing Ghost Rider into the MCU, which you would know they would do it justice. Because the point when these movies came out, they weren't very taken that seriously, and the people behind it, or at least the studio behind it, I wouldn't say the director or anybody who was writing it, but it just they didn't have that much faith in it. So certain things wasn't like like I don't know. It's just like bits and pieces were taken from the comics and stuff like that. But I don't know. Like I said, it could have been played a lot better now in the MCU, which I imagine Kevin Feige is somebody's going to be doing something with Ghost Rider at some point. But yeah, like I said, it's like the goons here weren't very good. I mean, Peter Fonda's Mephisto, it wasn't bad casting with Peter Fonda, the late Peter Fonda. But I think like Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider, Nicolas Cage himself was probably the best part out of the entire film. But don't like the Blackheart thing. That wasn't like a good Blackheart. So far as the only live action Blackheart we ever got, and Peter Fonda is the only live action Mephisto we got so far. Some people might say I think it's best to have like maybe Nicolas Cage as the MCU's Ghost Rider now that he's slightly older, but I don't subscribe to that. I still want him as the Johnny Blaze, and we just get Gabriel Luna as the current ongoing Ghost Rider for the MCU, because going this Young Avengers thing going on right now, and in the comics, Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider is a member of the Avengers. But yeah, and some of the writing, there's certain questionable writing stuff. It wasn't very good. Roxanne, typical female co-lead of superhero films. She doesn't really offer much as far as like any agency. Just like a damsel in distress, at least until the point where she tried to like fight back with the shotgun, which at least appreciate that at the very least. She can like step up and offer some kind of backup for Johnny. And the fact that they did not allow like at least have Carter Slade provide backup until like the sunrise and he's losing his powers and he gets killed saving Johnny, and with that good deed act he gets to go to heaven. That been played better. But like I said, I mean, like at least I like Nick Cage. I mean, I think personally Nick Cage and whole Ghost Rider aspect is probably like the best parts of the film. Everything around is kind of questionable. But if you've seen 2007 Ghost Rider movie recently, let me know in the comments below what you thought after probably rewatching it after so many years. Or if you haven't seen it before, just give it a shot. I think that and Spirit of Vengeance is probably like not the worst things you'll probably ever see in terms of a film, but at least watch it once just to say that you've seen it. Because honestly, I think because watching Nick Cage in anything is awesome. He always gives 110%. There's no Nick Cage movie that I've seen that I hated. I mean, it's one of those. It's weird because I remember telling people this all the time. It's like it's something about Nick Cage that no matter what movie he's in, whether it's good movie or like a horror film, he is always the best part of the film that makes the film, even if the film is maybe bad, it's still a fun film. He makes it fun. He's always 100% invested, and it's like I never hated anything he's in. I cannot say that about any other. I mean, there's other actors that I like and stuff, but it's only Nick Cage that always makes any bad film a good time. And it's like it's something only unique to him. But anyway, I'll see you guys in a few minutes while I go over my spoiler review for Spirit of Vengeance. So stay tuned for that. Don't forget to leave a like and hit the notification bell. And follow me on my various uh, uh, channels and links below: Twitch and Patreon and Twitter. And yeah, just follow the links in the description below. And I will see you guys in a little bit. Peace.